No, I was muted when he heard it.
Oh, I don't know.
Is it me? No.
Hey, welcome everybody. Please excuse the background noise if you hear a lot of clickly clack, clack, clack. People's keyboards are very loud at the moment for some reason. Won't call them out, but we know who it is. Anyways, morning for Caffeine Corner. Normally on Monday, we did an episode on Sunday, and I guess we're doing one this morning as well. Why not, right? Morning, Chesh.
Good morning. I got my tea.
I got my coffee and my magic cup. Look at that.
This is some Starbucks mug. I don't think I've ever actually had Starbucks except for once in high school. Oh, wait. I mean, the other day when somebody, one of the people from Starbucks came over and gave us, like, little sampler snacks because they have some left over because they were, like, right beside my workplace. Like, they were attached building. And then I think somebody gave me a Jones Cola from there once, which is just, a drink. Like a bottle drink you can get from the corner store.
I happen to like Starbucks coffee. I'm not going to lie. It's pretty decent, although there are some other places out there for cheaper. And I usually go to them. So obviously, but I think you're paying for a premium name brand. But no, Starbucks has good coffee. I'm not going to say that.
Why do you need to pay for a brand when it comes to coffee, though? That seems bizarre to me.
It's a social setting. The only reason I'll go to Starbucks is they have good Wi-Fi. The people that work there are really always nice. So I mean, I like the ambiance more than anything else. So I pay $1 or $2 more for that. I'm cool with that.
That's what I go to the bar for. I treat the bar like people treat going to sit and working at a cafe.
Oh, I've done that as well. Yeah, no, I mean, I'll sit at a bar, have a drink, have my laptop, and I interviewed Topic Thunder that way at Applebee's, so people remember. But
nice.
Anyways, look who we got here. Boy, we got a full crew today. And it's kind of weird because, Cheshire and I, when we started Caffeine Corner, we were just going to, like, talk about stuff. We weren't going to really bring in people in. Boy, that got shot really quick. All of a sudden now we're, like, bringing people in. Whatever. But if you guys remember, we talked a little bit about Essence of Thought and the Rachel Oates thing on Sunday with David Worley. And I think there was probably a lot more we could probably get into in recent stuff on Twitter. And by the way, I want to point out that these videos, a lot of people have been coming to my channel that are new to the community, and they don't know really what the heck's going on. I understand that, and I apologize. A lot of these things are just for people that have been around for a long time. We have thousands of people in our community. And so they know the players. And so if you're new to this community from like other communities like the Team Mom or from whatever other community you're from, you may not know what's going on. And I do apologize for that. There's a too long didn't read version out there probably somewhere. But, ask questions in the live chat. I got mods that can fill you in on anything like that. But I just got to give people heads up because a lot of people are like, who are these people?
Yeah, we can do a quick TLDR. Essentially, Essence of Thought had an opinion about somebody named Rationality Rules who made a video about trans athletics and trans people within sports. And he got some things correct, he got some things wrong, and he's a little bit used a bit of hyperbole that people were not impressed with. Well, people came to him. He then decided to change his stance a little bit. He had kind of ended up coming to sort of the same conclusion that women's sports essentially need to be protected, and so we need to find a way to deal with this. Otherwise, it's not really going to be good for a protected group within sport. And Essence of Thought took exception to that and lost their collective shit over it. Now, Rachel Oates, who is a friend of Rationality Rules, decided they weren't going to get involved because they didn't know anything about sport, and they said as much. Well, Rationality Rules was like, yeah, okay, I'm changing my stance anyway, and kept her involved in what was going on. And she was like, I don't know. So Essence of Thought then decided to attack Rachel Oates, who had said nothing on the matter and had opted to not because they didn't know enough about what was going on. And so he basically took advantage of that, and so Essence of Thought will be known as Peter or Ethel, and as a he or a she, as they are gender fluid, and basically just berated and attacked Rachel Oates with his fan base for months, until finally Rachel broke down, hurt herself on a stream. It was not a good time. She wrote a whole manifesto-y thing. It's really interesting and worth reading, with all of the receipts of that kind of stuff happening. And then most of it stopped, and they were like, we don't care, fuck you, you're just hiding behind being a white woman with problems, you're threatening to cut yourself over this, which was not what she was doing. And then the whole thing essentially came to a close because Essence of Thought said that their wife was having a mental breakdown over it, which was hypocritical as shit, but then everybody was like, fine, whatever, and they stopped talking about it. Now, recently, after
I didn't. I made a video responding to that bullshit.
Nice.
Remember, this is the too long didn't read version, and this is going to take an hour for her to catch people up.
Yeah. So really, last thing is that he had called Rachel Oates and anybody who didn't essentially not be friends with Rationality Rules or stop watching their videos or boycott them, essentially violent transphobes. And that's only important because Essence of Thought is back months later, now explaining or redefining what they meant by violent transphobe. Sarah, would you like to take it from here?
That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah, that was a good summarizing of everything, and
thank you. I tried.
Yeah, there was a lot of shit happening in the last few days. When Essence of Thought decided to bring this shit up again, because I'm gonna try to be as charitable as I can with Essence of Thought, which I already did on Twitter. Like, what they're trying to say is that they are simply defending themselves, because when the whole shit went down, when there was the self-harm episode with Rachel, a lot of people went heavy on Essence of Thought, myself included. I made a video just trashing them, basically. I wasn't the only one. A lot of people did that because we were all really, really upset and angry at them, especially because of the reaction to the self-harm episode that was so insensitive and just didn't care. So that was the thing that really pissed almost everybody off. And I can understand that Ethel feels the need to defend from all those accusations and shit and all that stuff that people said. I can understand that. Now, I don't mean that I agree with them, don't mean that I agree how they handle it. Of course, no way I say that I agree with how they reacted to Rachel Oates' self-harm episode. That was really, really disgusting. But I can understand why they feel the need to make this video. And one of the criticisms that people were making, Essence of Thought is profiting from harassment. Actually, this video is not on their Patreon. They're not making money from this video. So they took these steps to do that.
So is their channel monetized?
I don't know if the video is monetized. I didn't watch it. But it's not something that is not. No, it's because there was a thing with the Patreon. That's why.
But that could still be a valid argument if the video itself is monetized, because you're
but
still
not
making.
Through Patreon, though. But not through Patreon.
Oh, yeah, Demi doesn't know. So
yeah, there was a situation with the Patreon.
There's a situation on Twitter where people were calling out to have him removed from Patreon because he's profiting off of harming someone else.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll check to see if the video is.
And this video is not on Patreon, so I think that was a shitty move. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I mean, I understand why they do that. Now, it doesn't excuse the lying. It doesn't excuse the misrepresentation. And one of the big debates on the Twitter thread that got me banned by some people was the violent transphobe thing. And they say, but Ethel is using a different version of violent, like you have economic violence. It's like, shut the fuck up. Saying economic violence and calling someone a violent transphobe is not the same fucking thing. Like, it's ridiculous.
You're just trying to justify what you said in the first place.
Exactly. And they not only called Steve Woodford Rationality Rules violent transphobe, they call Rachel Oates a violent transphobe. And like, Rachel did fucking nothing. Like, Rachel was called a violent transphobe because she did a video criticizing a person making a criticism, whatever, to LGBT people. And people decided to call her a violent transphobe for calling out or criticizing that woman and not criticizing Steve Woodford. When first, this is not true. She did criticize him, she just didn't do it in public. And second, Steve Woodford didn't make a transphobic video. His last 3 videos on the topic are in no way transphobic. He has a good point regarding trans women in sports. Is nothing transphobic about his videos. So, in fact, I agree with almost everything he says in his videos. But apparently, I'm a violent transphobe too. So,
I mean, you want to get into that. You're also like token, and they use token.
Oh yeah, I saw everything.
The token trans, yeah.
Yeah, I am everything.
You know, you're
token,
so easily manipulated,
trans.
Sarah, and you're just mindless, malleable. Yeah.
Exactly, and that is the thing, because I decide to not agree with them. I just generalize and calling them SJWs because I don't agree with them. They vilify me in every way they can, which whatever, I don't give a shit. But it's like we are only allowed to have that view, and they don't seem to understand that when it comes to athletics, our biological differences are important and they matter. And they misrepresent the argument. They say, you're taking away human rights of trans people, when it's not at all what we are arguing. We are just saying that female categories of sport need to be protected. We're not saying that we should ban trans people from sports. That's not the argument at all. That's the thing. Essence of Thought make that they believe that this is the argument, that the argument that Rationality Rules and others are making is that trans people should be banned. That is not the argument at all. That is a complete misrepresentation of the argument. But they have to make that misrepresentation in order to say that the guy is a transphobe and is trying to take away human rights from trans people. So it's very frustrating because they are really not interested in listening to the other side.
Yeah,
like
EFT is not interested in discourse. I can tell you right now, I've watched a video, and this was a private video, so I don't think he even wants it out there any longer. People have pointed out to him the problem, but he has actually said in the video years ago that if you do not agree with him, you are automatically, by fiat, prima facie, a transphobe. It doesn't matter. If you have any disagreement with him on any of these issues, you are, in his view, a transphobe, and that's now you have a discourse. And by the way, we might want to introduce Jenn in here too, because she's been sitting idly by, just hanging in there, and nobody's even talked to her yet. I feel bad.
Well, I have a very different perspective on this. I have not been involved in the back and forth of all of this. I did not see Woodford's original video. I had to pick up on all of this piecemeal from the backside. For me, it's not. Oh God, this is. I'm not concerned about who said what, who is what, who isn't what. I'm concerned about the backstabbing, the manipulation that everybody in there seems to have with their audience, the miscommunications, the willful ignorance of what other people are saying, again, on all sides. It just annoys the shit out of me that we are destroying ourselves as a community from the inside out.
Can you clarify what you mean by misrepresentation by both sides and all that stuff on both sides? Can you clear that up?
People, it's not a deliberate lie. I don't want you to get that idea that I think people are doing deliberate lying about things. I think people choose to use certain adjectives. I'm trying. Tend to use certain adjectives and adverbs that will inflame, and I think they do it not necessarily even in a knowing way, but that it's something that we on Twitter, we on YouTube fall into doing because it's what we're used to. The freedom of the internet and all of us to act almost as our Aboriginal selves is bad. It's toxic, and I think we're hurting each other. We're hurting our community. Okay, regardless of the issue, we are hurting our community, and until we take the time to sit down and actually communicate with each other, it's not going to get better. It's just not. We can't afford this right now. We have people knocking on our doors who want to exterminate us, literally.
Yeah, you think that Essence of Thought has lost the big picture, I guess.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. And I happen to agree with you on this. I think that essence of thought is all about essence of thought and not looking at the ramifications of actions. It's a problem. It's a problem because I think you're right. There's so much bigger problems out there for the trans community that for essence of thought to keep on trying to bring it back to rationality rules and for some reason drag Rachel Oates of all people back into the discussion, who made it very clear that she did not want to be a part of that kind of dialogue and that kind of rhetoric and that kind of hate. I just find, again, morally reprehensible. And this is my big issue of the whole thing, because when you're out in the public, I get that you're a target. I understand that. We all get that. But Rachel Oates, she has recused herself from that part of the discussion, and she has every right to. And why drag her back in? There's no credible reason to, except that Essence of Thought is trying to be hyperbolic. He's trying to be relevant again. He's trying to say, I'm going to push this person's buttons no matter what, just because I want to be noticed. I want to be seen. I want to be heard. That's how I'm looking at this.
If you take a look at the view history recently on their channel, you're talking about videos getting maybe 1.1 or 2.1k views, 2.5k views. This recent video that they just brought out, justifying their use or explaining their usage of violent.
Can you put your mic a little closer? You're really low.
Sorry, has
Perfect.
5k views on it.
Yeah.
So you're talking about somebody who, what I would say, if you want to talk about manipulating your audience, this person is trying to, again, be relevant or trying to hash out. The thing is like, it's fine if they said something and that's not what they meant. So which means on the first step, you failed to explain yourself and communicate yourself properly. That happens all the time. People do that constantly, and it's easy to misunderstand somebody. But then they did not correct themselves when people misunderstood them. It went on, and it's been how long since they initially said that? Over a month at this point. And so they're only clarifying it now, months after the fact, after everybody's dropped the topic, to bring it back up again, to clarify by not clarifying.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, now you got explosives and pops. We're gonna have to get you.
And I will agree with that, Chess. Yeah, I think it was foolish for this person to bring this up now, this late, when everything had finally settled down and people were getting back into maybe even talking to each other again.
Exactly.
To bring this up yet again. According to what was said in that person's video, they had to wait because of something to do with the police. I don't get what that's about.
Actually, I do know about, but if Sarah can explain it better, that would be. Do you know
The police?
How they got involved? Yeah. Do you know about that?
I know that they called the police because of the self-harm episode.
Yeah, but
that's all I know.
They've already been taking. Okay, when Rachel had the self-harm thing, police had already been notified. People have already been contacted. They made sure she was okay. People were with her. Essence of Thought, hours of later, decided to then call the police as if some kind of like, oh, I'm going to do the right thing and call the police. Like nobody else has.
To the wrong place.
And sent them to the wrong address. They sent them to her old address, right? So he made matters worse because he was told that she's taken care of, and this is her abuser doing this. It made absolutely no sense to me.
No, it didn't make sense to anybody. Excuse me, no. Why?
I thought it made perfect sense because he's deliberately trying to cover his tracks. He's trying to give this sense of innocence and trying to say, I never meant any negative intention. And the fact that it led here, sure. I'm going to do what's correct and call the police, even though he knew full well it wasn't the correct decision. He doesn't know. He knows his followers don't know that.
Oh yeah, so, no. From an irrational point of view, perfectly. Yeah, I agree with you. It makes sense from his perspective to try to manipulate. But I'm just saying, from a normal person's point of view, that looking in, it would make no sense, and we recognize exactly what you recognize. Yes, Demi, I agree with you on it.
Nopla made a good analogy about that. It's like you run over somebody with your car, and then you sort of blame them. And said you are not at fault because you call the ambulance. Like it just doesn't make any fucking sense.
I'm curious. What are the panel's sort of thoughts on the idea that if?
Can I just have a clarification?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, please.
When was this so-called video released?
The new one last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in a bubble, I guess.
Well, if you didn't keep getting kicked off of platforms, maybe. I don't know.
Well, and that brings up another point. look at the repercussions of this. Demi, who has a wonderful voice out there, speaking all kinds of truths that people need to hear, and she can't. She's been eliminated from the game because of somebody's attitude. Nothing
And we
else.
know
Yeah,
who was that. It
and
was
by the way, that
Callan.
it was
Let me
Keon
just say
actually.
it out there. It was
Oh,
fucking
Keon
Callan.
admitted to it. So by the way, we have
No.
No,
Keon was the first time. Last
It,
time was
it happened
Oh,
twice.
Kaylin.
It
Okay.
happened.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. Okay, so
I lost 2 accounts this year in 1 month, you guys. It
yeah,
was.
let's point that
You're
out real
both
quick.
correct.
Let's point this out real quick because this is important. And by the way, I have to end this actually in this episode is gonna be 90 minutes. I got to end on the half hour because I've got Ozzy and Nick coming on for Ask a Philosopher at noon my time. Just
nice.
every you all know, but there's a lot of people that are going around just doing this mass flagging stuff and looking for things to report on Twitter. Be advised on this. This is not a joke by any stretch of imagination.
Yeah, this is the exact reason why my block list is public. The majority of people that are on my block list are people who will target your account for false flagging and will attempt to get you deflatted.
I'm in Twitter jail for,
or they'll try to bait you into saying something that
Absolutely.
they can false flag.
I'm in Twitter jail for 7 days down to like 4 or 5 now. Cheshire was in Twitter jail the other day. Sarah's been in Twitter jail. Lost one of her accounts. Demi's lost 2 accounts. Brittany, one of the mods from Katie Joy, she was in Twitter jail. And then somebody else just recently told me that I don't remember her name, but a lot of people are being flagged on this stuff. Now, we don't go around doing this. The reason we don't, because we don't need to. When these people have misinformation, what we do is we explain to people why they're wrong, right? We use words and argumentation to show why they're
or even
incorrect.
if you disagree.
Yeah. Now again, I'm not saying there shouldn't be some things that should be reported. There are some things out there. If people are advocating for actual violence and actual spewing hate, then yeah, I get it. But all they're trying to do is shut us down because we're able to explain why they're wrong. Like Jen said with Demi, she's the voice of reason, or was at least in some regard on Twitter, but couldn't have that, right? And it's mind-boggling to me that a lot of people are not more proactive on these people because they know who they are. They know the people trying to shut people down and doing mass flagging and doing reporting as a weapon. They're weaponizing these tools. And like Chess said, that block list was only for her to point out that most of the people on that list do stuff like that. Not all, but a large majority.
Well, they're blocked to protect. They're blocked to protect my own account, and I made the public so other people could utilize that list however they saw fit to then protect their own accounts if they so wanted, or engage with these people if they so wanted. Demi, you had something you wanted to say?
With them, you take your chances.
Yeah, exactly.
It comes back to like we already went past it. I did get suspended from Twitter for telling Jessica you need to throw herself off a building, and I was kind of fine with that. Like, I don't really take it back because it was a joke, but it's also like a joke you shouldn't be making because it can come across wrong. People are not gonna. Don't tell people to throw themselves off of roofs, even if you don't like them. Just let them go to prison.
Yeah,
and
there are
the
times
fact
where
that
you
I got
accept
reported for that is justified in my mind, even though it pissed me off.
That's fair. That's fair.
With the problem with the flagging on Twitter is that's what happened with last time with Demi and Callan, is that you're gonna have people like Callan calling you token, calling you transphobic, which in my view are extremely serious accusations. You call someone a transphobe, especially another trans woman, call them a transphobe. That is a fucking serious accusation. You don't do that lightly. I don't take it lightly. And if your response is, oh, fuck you, or whatever, you're a fucking dickhead, whatever response you give, which in my opinion is much less harmful to your image than calling someone a transphobe, they flag
because
you.
Calling someone a dickhead or a cunt or something like that holds no actual content. It holds no information about the person other than you think that person is a cunt, whoever said it. But when you say someone's a transphobe, that word holds information. That word says that you are violent against trans people. You are bigoted against trans people. So that actually holds information about your character.
Well,
me calling you a cunt is just my opinion.
No, I agree with that.
Much more serious.
That's a really good point. We actually have on this Twitter thread, which I'll link to people if they're interested in viewing it. We got to the point, because Sarah and I were both in there. You were in there more than I was, because I was just like, oh God, I can't with this. But at one point, these people were arguing that the whole argument is about trans people in sports. Like it moved back over to that argument, because at first it started with whether or not Essence of Thought deserved the amount of hate that they got. And it's like, there's a difference between getting hate and being harassed. If somebody if a bunch of people come to tell you to go fuck yourself, that's not harassment because that's all one individuals coming to say go fuck yourself. But if one person continuously tells you over and over and over again, that's when it turns into harassment. And again, that's under certain circumstances.
Or we can even like broaden the definition a bit more and say if someone tells you or their followers to go out and harass and attack someone, that's targeted harassment.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's never happened. No one's actually explicitly told anyone to go and attack Essence of Thought or insult them.
Nobody
People
has.
just don't like you, and that's why they're doing it.
Yeah, nobody has, except for the one person did a call out for the Patreon, which we'll get into a little bit. But it's so funny that a lot of people keep talking about dehumanization and terms that dehumanize, and I understand that. But at the same time, I didn't see them call people out when they said Cheshire and other friends of mine, like Brittany and a few other people, were not real women. It didn't seem much of a call out for that. You know, it's like if you happen to associate with certain people or you don't agree with somebody, then they throw these things out to try to minimize your argumentation, to minimize you as a person, because they try to devalue what you have to say by attacking people personally. I am tired of that. I see it frequently. I mean, it makes no sense to me to say you're pro this, you're pro that, you're feminist, you're pro, social justice, and you want equality, and then say, well, Cheshire agrees with Steve or something, so she can't be a real woman. This has happened. Literally has happened.
You've got people who are arguing that they are for women, or they're for like protecting this, that, or the other thing, or people who are like, oh, well, we're very protective of trans people and we want them to be taken fairly. But if you get a trans person who disagrees with them, or any person who disagrees with them, they just start immediately throwing slurs out. That's not being pro-trans.
Was it a tranny that told you you're not a real woman?
No.
Oh.
Well, I mean, we understand Cheshire's a goblin, so we don't know how that works. But
well, we still haven't figured out which way you're transitioning yet, have we, Chesh?
No idea.
Exactly. I got officially inducted into the trans trio a couple weeks. That was like last month. But we have you notice that you have these tactics. Oh, well, you can't say something that's not transphobic and just agrees with me, and you're a transphobe. And then you disagree with me on this, you're a token trans then. Well, it's a lose-lose situation where this person, one, isn't interested in having a conversation, and two, anytime there is a conversation or a dialogue, it gets shut down. We had these people where the argument, the discussion moved from whether or not somebody deserved this or whatever into what the initial issue was trans people in sport. And then later down the line, when they started not being able to answer questions or deal with the arguments, said that, well, sports aren't important. What?
They went from a lot of things.
Yes.
I think it kind of comes back to a stream. That's why I got banned, because of the stream I had with Saurus and like responding to the chat and stuff. And it comes back to that. Saurus asked me a question and said, if someone holds a anti-trans position, does that make them transphobic? And then, like, he deliberately framed the question in such a way that would lead you to say, yeah, you're transphobic.
Yeah, well, what is an anti-trans position?
And that's exactly my response. I was like, yeah, I they get to decide what's the anti-trans opinion, because if I hold an opinion that isn't agreeing with the social justice paradigm, I guess, then I am holding an anti-trans position.
Right.
But I'm trans, so I don't get to determine what position I hold in my community. So it makes no sense. You're essentially
I've
just
seen
saying...
Yeah, you, Demi,
you're
and Sarah,
essentially just saying agree with us.
Exactly, it's bang on. It's perfectly well put.
I have legit seen in real time the three of you disagree with another trans person, and yet they will be just as vitriolic toward you as they would somebody who actually is transphobic. And it just boggles my mind that they're trying to, as Jenn said, split communities like that rather than come together and say, hey, there are actual transphobes out there that we all would agree are I mean, I've seen Sarah go off the turfs.
Yeah,
those are not good people. Okay.
It's hilarious because they're so transparent, because the amount of times I've got in an argument with these people, and I'm not delicate, I'm a bitch. I deliberately say things to piss off.
She ain't lying. Words true.
If anybody calls me transphobe, they're going to hear about it from me big time. I have been fighting this bullshit for longer than most of these people have been on the fucking planet. And I'm not about to have some kid goddamn call me a transphobe because they have some bug up their ass.
Yeah, I get into engagements with these people and I'm quite hostile. And the first thing they do is throw to me, if we weren't leftists, we would be calling you all kinds of bigoted words for talking to us like this. I'm like, so you're just in your head, you want to call me that. You're just not doing it because you think you're going to look like a hypocrite. Like, if that was, why is that the first thing that comes into your head? That you would be calling me a tranny if you were Republican or if you were some other ideology. It's just
Well,
dumb. You're trying to
I made a
justify the fact that
video.
you're not calling me a tranny, and that means I should agree with you.
Anybody who
I
uses the term transphobe should be forced to go watch Antonio Subrat's videos
there's a
and
few
learn what
out
that
there.
word really means.
Absolutely. Manya has a super chat there. You want to read that super chat real quick?
Sure.
Yeah, failed at engineering for 5 said, "Oh, and telling me that because I and Chesh and Nicole don't agree with them, then we are not intelligent and not women."
And yeah, she has a master's degree in engineering. I mean, it's come on. So she's not a woman. She's not intelligent merely because they don't agree
They
with.
don't agree with
So
it.
like, I don't
Yeah.
get it. How's
The
it
people.
fine to? So how's it fine to? Would it be fine to say trans women aren't women then for holding opinions? Would you be fine with coming up and saying to me, "I'm not a woman because I hold my positions"?
Yeah,
Because like
your gender has nothing to do with it. The whole thing is incredibly sexist. But the thing is
Yeah.
it's just not. A lot of it is anti-woman. Like a lot of it is anti-woman. A good portion of it is trans women
gender.
or trans men.
It's just anti-gender, a lot of it.
Exactly.
Because a lot of trans people, the majority of trans people, maybe I'm wrong, it's 2019, woke lit life, I don't know. But I used to think that most trans people were binary trans people. There's trans man or trans women, and they fall like quite solidly into a gender, one or the other. And now it's like, well, no, fuck gender. We don't need gender. Gender's irrelevant. And that includes cisgendered men and women and transgendered men and women because we all still fall into the same gender paradigm.
Well, I'd be really curious because Sarah's actually got a really interesting opinion on this and that I've started to adopt. And I'd be curious if Jen sort of thinks the same thing because, Sarah, you're saying that it would be reasonable to think that non-binary people do not, or gender fluid people would not count as trans because they are not in fact transitioning. So if you want to make that a little maybe in your words rather than mine, because what the hell do I know? And then I'd be curious to see what Jen thinks about
You're
that.
transitioning to human. Somebody said Cheshire, by the way.
I thought I was transitioning. I thought I was halfway between a cow and a goblin.
But yeah, Sarah has good arguments on this, and I tend to agree with her. And I'll explain my position after Jen. But go ahead, Sarah.
Ocean brought up an idea of a debate between me and Suris. I would happy to have that. Maybe not even a debate, but a conversation.
Yeah, and
can we host that on the Non Sequitur show?
Yeah, well, that's
what
be
awesome.
I brought that already to them, so yeah, that would be awesome. Definitely.
I really tried, and I actually was a bit public about that on Twitter, and I had arguments with people about this. I really tried to solve this problem and come up with a way of having some sort of neutral gender for people who don't feel like they belong in either a man or woman categories. Yep. But the problem is, the ways to come up with that is to completely dissociate gender from sex, from biology, which is what many of these SJWs, wokes, whatever do. They make a complete dissociation and say that gender is simply cultural elements. So it's going to be clothes and stereotypes and archetypes and all of that stuff that is what makes gender, and is completely dissociated from biology, which in my opinion is absurd. We cannot dissociate our social elements and cultural elements from biology, because biology is what it's the phenomenon that leads to that. We are biological creatures. We cannot dissociate the fact that we are social animals from our biology. It's part of who we are, and we just can't do that. And when we try to come up with solutions for a neutral gender or multiple genders, you enter to the problem of usually you're going to stereotype. You're going to have idea of some people being more men or more women than other people. So that leads to several problems. So one thing that happens a lot and I follow tennis, for example, and the Williams sisters often are accused of being not being women, of being too masculine, and it's something that many African and African American women suffer because of how our difference in our dimorphism is. Many African women will have traits that they're more muscular and are traits that ours, especially Europeans, will see as more masculine. So this sort of idea that because you have more masculine or more feminine traits, if you're a woman and you have more masculine traits, you are less of a woman, that to me is terrible. It sort of validates this sort of discourse that if you are a woman with more masculine traits, you are less of a woman. When I don't see it like that at all. I just see it's like, yeah, you might have more masculine traits according to our general perception of masculine and feminine traits, but it's simply a variation of your gender. You are still a woman. You are not less of a woman for having certain characteristics. So the only way to resolve this problem and don't rely on stereotyping is relying on self-ID. It's the only way, and that's why they do it.
Yeah.
So whatever you call yourself, then you are. It's all in your head. If you call yourself, if Steve tomorrow decides to call himself a woman, he's a woman, and he doesn't have to change anything. Because if we associate with your physical present, with your body, then you're gonna end up in stereotyping, and that's why
you can call me Stefan
so
if you
much. That's why ContraPoints is getting so much hate from them now, because ContraPoints' idea of gender is not dissociated from your appearance, because she doesn't understand how someone who looks totally masculine can suddenly call himself a woman, and my pronouns are now she and her. She that boggles her mind. So
well, look at like Yanez. Like Yanez would be a perfect example of that, I think. Yanev, yeah, whatever.
It's just a process.
Yeah. Real quick.
Don't get me started on that.
We got super chats and a couple questions, and I wanted to get Jenn on this real quick before we do that, though, because Jenn just had asked you how you feel about Sarah's argument that about non-binary not being categorized any longer in a transgender.
Yeah, they would still obviously be under the LGBTQ plus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me do the super chat.
I will say they are gender.
Hang on.
I absolutely agree that they should be under the broader LGBTQAA plus community umbrella. I mean, non-binary people are completely valid in their choices for their own lives. There's no doubt.
Yes.
I come from the old school. I grew up binary. I was indoctrinated, I'm going to use that word, as binary in the transgender community a long, long time ago. I ignored the transgender community because that was the rule a long, long time ago. You just did not socialize with each other. And
I love a relatable queen.
And getting and getting involved in the community here was a huge eye opener. I mean, I was just blown away, shocked that any of this existed. I had no idea. And I thought I was, I won't say woke, but I thought I was at least aware of my own people. And obviously I wasn't. So I've had to get to know that non-binary people exist. And then I found out that they are gender fluid, and today they're kind of feminine in appearance, which is fine. And tomorrow they're a little masculine in appearance, which is fine.
Yeah.
I am too.
Go ahead.
You know, that's the way all people are.
Demi, you want to say something real quick?
But then for them to want to call themselves transgender and put me in that same bucket, no.
And that's the point.
I spent decades
why put them in the same category?
Getting out of that bucket to pay for surgery, to be the person I am. We are not the same. We are both valid, but we are not the same.
Demi, do you want to touch on that before? And we got to get to these super chats and questions.
Like, although I do agree in principle, I just want to play devil's advocate. I don't actually agree with what I'm saying in it. But these people will make the argument of who gets to define what a transition is, how much you have to transition, like the amount you have to put into transitioning, and then it comes into, well, what if someone can't afford to transition? What if someone can't afford X, Y, and Z? Or like their transition, they decide they only want to transition this much or this much. It's like, how would we make the argument that, let's say, a trans person who just wants to take hormones but never wants to do anything else,
May
and
I
a
take
trans
that?
person who wants to have breast augmentation and nothing else? How do we
Jen and
just
Sarah are
define the
both like-
differences?
Yeah, we're gonna have to get back to it. I'm sorry, we got
Crunched
questions
on
here.
time.
I can
because
I
we
can
don't-
Crunch on
I can
time,
do it.
yeah. Go
I
ahead,
can do
Jen.
it in one sentence. I can just do it
Do
in
it.
one sentence.
Go.
Yes, Demi, your devil's advocacy is completely correct. Something needs to be done about that, and I am not the person to make that decision. It's something we all have to talk about.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
a good answer. Yeah.
Sarah,
I
can you
have
do
a-
it in one
I-
sentence?
No,
Was it
no,
a
we
good
can't.
answer,
We can't.
though?
No,
Was it-
I can't do
was
it in
it,
one
though?
sentence.
Shut it
But
down. Shut it down. This
have a
voice of
rebuttal for
reasons
that.
here.
Okay.
we-
Andrew T for 4 said, "How can we resolve this when EOT and is in an echo chamber? Of course, EOT needs to be moderated, but I'm not really sure how one would even go about this. We don't. We move on without them.
Yeah,
would be
and
my answer.
Yeah,
to
and
that.
that's why EOT comes out of like hiding to try to get relevant again. We'll address it here, and then I'm going to marginalize him again because his voice is not a voice of reason. I don't really think he has anything to add to the
There
conversation.
isn't. He doesn't want to discuss with anybody.
no.
He wants to tell people what they should say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Failed at engineering for 5 said, "I'm also for a long time have been on Tinder hooks about trans women in sports because I was concerned for women who were high on testosterone and similar." Yeah, because there's a lot of things to be concerned about when it comes to specific. And keep in mind, this is in sports specifically, not in a general sense. If you want to identify however you want to identify, that's fine. However, that does not that shouldn't be the category for sport because that it's just not feasible. It doesn't work. So realistically, the gender needs to be dropped from how we make that decision. Like physical, like how you look. And how you identify needs to be dropped from it entirely. We need to stop calling it male and female or men's and women's and start calling it this X or Y instead because it's getting caught up in shit that has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, there are some people out there that actually, like for example, if like Sarah was saying, if I tomorrow identified as Stephanie and said I was trans, instantly I'd be able to compete in like women's golf. And I don't. That makes absolutely no sense to me, and it shouldn't to anybody else. But that's not transphobic. That's just a rational conversation.
Or if you want the more extreme version of that, you say, "Well, I've decided to transition, therefore I should qualify no matter what."
Yeah, same
Even though
principle.
that is not the case, you don't get to it doesn't matter what you identify as. You don't qualify as an athlete if you're not an athlete.
Yeah, exactly.
If I identify as an athlete, I don't get to enter the Olympics.
I'm not a scientist because I say I'm identifying as a scientist, right? And this wasn't a super chat, but
Listen,
Jared,
this is a problem that Caitlin Chloe has. I identify as an engineer.
Yo, bravo, got that one in there. I like that. Zing, and there's more. But
Isn't she an engineer though?
No. Well, no, she never, as far as we know, she has not finished her thing, but she will be a computer engineer whenever she finishes her schooling. Which
Yeah, I
is
think
not
she
the
did
kind
finish.
that's a sidetrack. But anyways, real quick,
Yeah,
Jared had asked, and it's a good question from Jared. He says, if there's no such thing as gender, then doesn't that mean that no one's trans? Well, it seems so because, and by the way, the counter argument to all this is, and I've seen this as well, it's the argumentum ad dictionarium. They say, well, this is how the dictionary defines trans, therefore gender fluid is trans, non-binary is trans.
Yeah.
Bad argument, okay? That whenever you start using a dictionary for your argumentation, you're now dealing with semantics. You're now dealing with an inability to understand the actual rational discourse for the argument that Sarah is running, because you have nothing. But the dictionary says this. But that she's saying that
when
It's
everybody
an
is,
argument from authority.
Well,
It's using
We
an
have
It's a
we
poor
have
one. It's a
got
poor
to
one,
get
though.
we have got to get back on this topic on another time, really
Yes.
soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Look,
should do
I
that.
get the argument why people don't include, don't think
I'm
that non-binary should be
spitting
included in trans. And Jen pointed out that doesn't invalidate non-binaries, right? It doesn't make that. It doesn't.
Yeah, it
invalidate.
doesn't.
But transgender, as Demi brilliantly pointed out, conveys a message. Like transphobic conveys a message. Well, transgender conveys a message as well. You're transitioning somehow. Non-binaries are not transitioning in any way. So Sarah's argument makes sense to me looking in. Of course, I'm not really part of that. But if you're going to address things that give information, Sarah's argument makes sense to me.
And my way to respond to sorry, my way to respond
Sarah,
to
new Skype. Who's this?
Oh, please do, because I've been fucking.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you going to respond to what I said? Because it's pissing me
I will.
off.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
will.
Shut the fuck up, you lot. Shut up. Please
Yes,
tell me.
finally
tell
I'll
me.
be able to respond to Demi's devil's advocate argument
Thank
before.
you.
Um,
And I miss you so much,
which means
Demi.
my response to that is the way for us to solve this problem is gender dysphoria.
I was
So we don't classify people according to how they look or how much they want to transition. We don't decide that. I don't agree with doing
non-binary
that.
people.
Well, they
Non-binary
can
people have gender dysphoria.
That's what I say to them, and I try to have this fucking discussion, but the person, unfortunately, I was talking to didn't want to listen. A person can be both trans and non-binary. That is my point. Like, if you have gender dysphoria, right? If you have gender dysphoria, that means, in my view, that means that you have gender dysphoria and you transition in some way. You're taking hormones and you're changing your biology. In my view, that's a trans person.
So the transmedicalism route.
Exactly. So for me, that's the view. So if you want to completely change your appearance or your biology and try to look as much as you can as the opposite sex, then you would be a binary trans person. If you don't want to, and if you want to stay in like a middle of the road, you would be a non-binary or a gender non-conforming trans person. You are not conforming to the stereotypes of gender like I am, and I
But you're still
acknowledge
not
that.
comfortable in your given gender.
Yeah, I want to look as much as I can as the
Right,
opposite sex.
because these things would be removed from something such as
Yeah.
sport,
Yes.
where
So in
whatever
my
you decide
view,
to
I am
identify
not
as
gender
binary or not
non-conforming.
don't apply.
And that is another argument that I had. I am not gender non-conforming in my view. I
Well-
conform to gender, to the stereotypes of gender, whatever you want to call them. But you can be both. What I don't agree with is someone who doesn't have any dysphoria at all and simply changes their clothes and their demeanor and said, "Oh, I am trans." I don't agree with that. This person is simply gender non-conforming. Is simply not conforming to gender stereotypes, but is not a trans person. So this is something that I try to tell, but they
Something that we
never
need
want
to
to.
talk about more, obviously.
so-
I don't
And-
actually have a devil's advocate for transmedicalism because I just think that's like how it is. You can't go to a doctor in my country. You can't transition in my country unless you go to a doctor, you get a diagnosis, they give you a prescription for your hormones and
It's a
then tell you to
process.
go blood tests and therapy and all kinds of shit. You can't be a non-binary person transitioning here. You have to have some kind of like medical intervention to be considered trans. So
I'd
like
like
to point out
even
that
if you wanted to change your passport in this country, you have to have letters from your doctors with diagnosis and testimony to state you are who you claim to be. So it's like
I agree with
my
that.
whole country runs on transmedicalism. I can't see it being different.
Let me ask Sarah a question, then we'll get to the other two super chats. But Sarah, how should people deal with something like the long? I'll bring up one of our trolls, favorite trolls, Laura. I never saw Laura ever talk about dysphoria, ever talk about transgender, ever have any. I mean, I've known this person for 5 years. I have nothing to do with them. I blocked them out of my life ages ago, but they're still coming around. They're still trying to troll me, which is fine. Trying and backfiring spectacularly.
Failing.
You see the way Laura argues; it's just ridiculous. But I've never seen her in any way express anything in the trans community or dysphoria that I can remember. And I recently just saw a picture of her after transition. I never even knew until a little while ago that she even was trans. Nobody, I just found out through the grapevine because I had nothing to do with the person. Is that something that is common, that somebody who would just transition even though they've never talked about doing it? They have to talk
It's
about
possible.
it. Okay.
I would
Yeah.
say
It's
yeah,
possible.
because they don't have to talk to you about it.
Like, some might not talk about it, and some people might have dysphoria and not even know.
Okay,
That is
and
another
that's
thing.
it. Fair
People might
enough,
have
fair
a
enough.
discomfort
Awesome.
and they don't know, and they go see a doctor, and the doctor make the diagnosis of gender dysphoria, and the person didn't even know. They knew something was off, something was wrong, but they didn't know what it was.
Okay.
So that happens. That
Or
absolutely
that they're
happens.
more
And a
involved
lot of the
with
times it
dysmorphia
kind
than.
of goes. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, unless the person's more involved with dysmorphia than dysphoria,
Okay.
which are similar but not necessarily identical.
All right. A couple super chats there, Chesh.
Fact-based living for 5 says, does anyone agree using the word violence the way EOT does is hyperbole? Looking forward to non-sec return. Software engineers are not engineers.
Yes, it is hyperbolic. We all agree on that. Hopefully we'll get non-sector back
Absolutely.
next month. No, software engineers can be engineers. It depends what type of software engineer there are. So it's just to say software engineers aren't engineers is not actually true. Some software engineers actually are legit engineers. they're not programmers. There's a lot of
You
people.
need to be more specific.
Yeah, exactly.
Engineer has the same problem that trans person has. It's such a big umbrella that it's starting to. It's
Yeah, you could be a
confusing.
software engineer and actually sign engineering papers, which makes you, if you're a professional, registered, licensed engineer, software engineers can't fall into that. But it's a whole different line of schooling, and it's it's a lot of advanced stuff. But it's not just I program. I'm an engineer.
Well, Steve, by experience, then I'm a gender engineer.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. All right,
Andrew T for 9.99 said, one more question. How do you think gene editing will affect the overall gender divisions? If in theory we have the ability to put all individuals on a level playing field, will it become irrelevant?
I don't think it has to do with gene editing because there are biological things. For example, if somebody goes through puberty as a male, they're going to have some advantages that just not going to be able to be changed even through hormone replacement therapy or gene editing. Sarah and I discussed this the other day about.
No, but gene editing happens before you're born, doesn't it? What you just said doesn't hold any logic.
Well, I think what they're talking about. I think they're talking about now. They can correct me if I'm wrong. I think they're thinking maybe a little bit more.
I was talking about hormone replacement, but yeah, okay, but
I think they're talking.
I was going to get there, but okay.
I think they're talking a little bit more sci-fi-ish, whereas in like all genders are now equal to everything.
Yeah.
And so, like, you could increase certain expressions of alleles that increase strength in women and put them on the same level as men, and then when men and women are born, they're born equal but just different sex.
But now
it's already being regulated against that sort of thing. That is a.
But yeah, when you start manipulating the genome for that kind of stuff, now you get into like eugenic kind of stuff. Possibly.
Arguably, I would say that in sport it would no longer be relevant in that case.
I don't like gene editing, like gene, what do they call them?
But I don't think
when
that's
you say I want my baby to have blue eyes and you gene edit for that kind of stuff that people are talking about. That to me is kind of scary.
Yeah.
I don't see any problem with it in that sense. It's just vanity, right? Like, and I also
I disagrry. I think it does.
It can lead to like Gattaca sort of future where if you are rich, you can genetically manipulate your kids, and your kids are going to have many advantages compared to poor kids.
That's an argument over wealth inequality and access to medicine.
I agree with Demi. The technology. There's nothing wrong with the technology itself and being able to do that. It's a matter of a class.
We're getting off topic.
Sarah and I agree with that. I think it's going to enhance inequality. Yeah.
It will.
But there is an argument also in how it's going to change evolution, because evolution is such a stable system that's been going on for millions and millions of years, and we're going to start fuck it up with our genes. We don't really know what that's going to happen. We're going to mess it up.
Sarah, I have a question for you.
Screw over the planet.
Yeah. Well, when you're editing the germline,
we could easily, let's say in this example, someone in the super chat gave, we made everyone equal in strength and men and women equal. Making that edit, we could wait maybe like 50 generations down the line and the human species might be rendered infertile because of
we don't know the effects.
Like things we didn't preconceive.
Yeah, I don't think we could ever even know all the gene linking and the effects that we have. It's just too much information.
I have a question for Sarah on this.
All right, let's do the super chat first, and then we'll get to your promise, Jen.
Insidious Vid said more in late and lost EOT is awful. That is all.
Thank you.
Failed at Engineering said, I have been a hopeless romantic since a long time, but realized only last year that I'm bi thanks to my therapist.
Aww. And we love you, by the way. Failed at Engineering, so feel the love. All right, so Jen, go ahead. Ask.
All right, Sarah. Let's hypothetically say that we have gotten our gene editing abilities advanced enough that we can do almost anything. If you were identified as a transgender person and they gave you the choice that they could correct genetically that in your brain that made you feel that, or change your gender genetically, which would you pick?
You mean, I already didn't like the framing as identified. I don't agree with that. It's not that I identify.
It's all hypothetical, so let's go with it.
Frame the question a little better. If you had dysphoria that made you uncomfortable with your current gender, and you have two options, you can either have that removed that made you feel that way, or they can perfectly change you into a woman completely. Which would you choose?
Isn't that a pointless question?
No, I don't think it is. I think it is actually interesting.
Because you would feel the exact same way at the end of both decisions if you chose to be
Exactly.
So
Well,
it's indifferent. The question's pointless because
Well-
if you chose to go back to being a man, you're a man.
Well,
No
let's
one
Sarah
cares. If you
answer.
chose to be a woman, you're a woman.
Well,
No one
let's Sarah
cares.
answer because
Yeah,
you may not
in
think
my
it's pointless.
case, if I have the choice, it's obviously because of the fact that I have dysphoria that I would choose to transition into a woman. That's what I would do, of course.
I don't think it's obvious. Though. I think
That
some people might actually say they rather just not have the dysphoria. You never know.
may. Well, but that's the thing. If I had the chance to completely change my genome and become a female, completely female, I would not have dysphoria anymore. That problem
Sarah,
would be solved.
I agree
And you
with
would
you
have
on that.
you would have still
Yeah,
been
I get that.
assessing
I
that
agree.
question from a point of being in dysphoria. So you're already trans when you're being asked this question. So there wouldn't be
Yeah.
a like
Yeah,
way
yeah, no, I
my
agree with you
tranny
on that,
brain
Demi.
would say, let me go back to
Yeah,
being
yeah,
a man.
no, you make it sense, David. Trust me. I know. There's really most people would probably answer the way Sarah answered because that's what you're thinking. That's what you're going to do. Like for example, if all of a sudden tomorrow I had dysphoria, right? I probably would want to be physically completely female. However, right now that's not what I want. Right? I'm very happy physically the way I am because I don't have that dysphoria.
It's
but,
more of like an interesting mental exercise, but I think we need to start wrapping up because
Yeah.
we're getting to the end here.
Oh, jeez, she's tough.
we got about 15 more. I don't. We're going to be doing Ask a Philosopher at noon with Nick and Ozzy on theological non-cognitivism, which has been everybody's been
Nice.
asking about.
Finally,
Yeah, it's going to be an amazing discussion. I have a feeling with
Uh,
so much we can talk about. With
don't forget to like and share because I would like to point out, as somebody said in the chat, we're already getting flagged for hate speech.
Yeah, and by the way,
Already.
TOS rules when it comes to these topics is that these topics can be addressed, they can be discussed, and that's what we're doing. Obviously, there's been nobody advocating any kind of hate in any way. Completely
Well,
the
it's-
opposite. We're the ones
yeah.
actually responding to some people that are actually exuding hate.
Well, and we're actually trying to have the discussion. We can't make things better for anybody if we just shut down conversation. We can
Yeah.
only attempt to make things better by trying to have these conversations.
But you notice that
People
they
want
try.
to stop us.
Tress, you notice how many people are trying to shut down the conversation. Leslie Bass got her channel under review, which, by the way, excuse me, had nothing to do with content IDs, so that narrative doesn't fly. We actually have actual physical evidence of people calling out for mass flagging, being instigated and being told to go mass flag and given suggestions to mass flag. We have all that. It's on my Facebook page. It's on other people's Twitter accounts. We know this is established
Instagram.
fact. And so
Does that count as target harassment?
it does, but the
Yes.
problem is this. It absolutely is targeted harassment. But here's the thing. They're saying it on Twitter. They're saying it on Instagram. They're saying it on other platforms. They don't come on YouTube and advocate for it because that you can go to a forum. You can say report this time thing. And so they know what they're doing when it comes to this kind of targeted harassment, of course. And you guys know I've been targeted for how long now?
Do they have Patreon? Because that is something that to me could be reported
It
to
would be a
Patreon.
very hard case to make. Patreon doesn't really do much.
The question is,
You have to be like Onision
not-
level, right? Onision, that got noticed, and so Patreon were like, we have
Yeah.
to do
Well,
something
how
about
long
this,
were
but-
people talking about Onision for, though? That
Right.
didn't happen for way too long.
Literally, when I first started YouTube, I had a video, like on the first couple of months, I had a video about Onision. People have been doing this shit for ages, and it's
Yeah.
only happened like last
Yeah,
month.
the thing is we
Yeah.
don't know what the requirements
Oh, but
are.
Milo lost his Patreon ages ago for calling for target harassment. So
Yeah,
So,
but
yeah,
I
so
think
you
when you're
can
calling out, but I think it's dangerous to call out for people Patreon like we had just recently with EOTs. I didn't think that was a good idea.
no, I didn't.
It
either.
sets a bad precedent, and that is targeted. And my thing is this: I would rather have the conversation and have people go, you know what? I really don't want to support this person. I'll withdraw their Patreon. If people do to me, I've lost 20% of my Patreon in this month, and again, it could be seasonal. Whatever the reasons are, I still always do what I do. I don't do it if I say, hey, people don't like the content, my Patreon goes down. That's just okay with me because I'm going to do what I want to do, and I hope I make it up by people that come in later on and go, oh, you know what, I really like this channel. I want to be a Patreon for it, and I realize a lot of this stuff that we talk about isn't science, isn't philosophy, but I've noted on my I have on my Patreon, this channel's for discussions.
Yeah,
And this is part of
keep in mind,
discussions.
like, there's a good portion of this will end up getting moved onto non sequitur.
Yeah, exactly. This is kind of a holding thing until we get non sequitur back because I want to move this stuff to that channel, obviously. But people like that kind of stuff, so I have a lot of people that come in for different reasons. I cannot cater to everybody; it's never going to happen. But I will
just stop being pretentious, audience. Come on, just let have fun for once in
demanding,
your
right?
life.
I will say this. Trina says, though Katie Joy, I was warned not to go not here, and here I are. Trina was one of those persons from another community that was told by Katie, don't go to that Steve's channel. It's bad stuff, bad juju, and yet here she is, and she's making brilliant content that I think is hilarious. I'm gonna put a YouTube channel.
3 trans women here.
Real quick, I just put a link to Trina's channel. Go. She has some funny stuff, and I might be biased because she kind of seems to be anti Katie. I don't know if she's pro Steve, but it's funny stuff. But go check her videos out.
Is anyone pro Steve?
Right? Yeah, exactly.
No.
I get it. Right? It's not that Steve's right. He's just not wrong, kind of thing. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
Chess, on that comment, I specifically did not post a link to this in trans Twitter.
Oh, yeah, that
because I felt that if almost any of those folks saw me on here and saying the things that I've said today, that they would all block me.
Yeah, isn't that ridiculous?
Oh my God.
And
so
honestly,
incredibly
I need
ridiculous?
the community right now for my own mental health.
Yeah, no, I totally support you 1,000% on that. I get it, I really do. It's just a shame.
I think you need to find a healthier community. If you need a community for support and you're going through a hard time, you don't grasp onto the first community that accepts you. You find someone and a group of people that are going to healthfully help you change your life.
We're in the community too. We support her 1,000%. So I mean, there's a lot of communities out there.
Don't associate just because they are trans and they have to, you know, it's a bad way to associate because we have so many different views and many of them just can't accept different views. So.
Reed for 2 says, I'm still a Patreon. He is a piece of shit.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Like I said, I want people to Patreon and watch because they like the content. And if I, have lose subs or I lose Patreon because they don't like the content any longer, I get it. I'm prepared for that because it's volatile, it's mercurial. The audiences, like what they like. This is what I've always told people: watch what you want to watch. And then if you happen to like it, then support the people. I don't know how else you could go about it on YouTube other than that.
There's also a big difference between flagging something that you don't like and flagging something that's actually breaking the terms.
Exactly.
If you don't like Steve, flagging him isn't the appropriate way to handle that. Just don't watch Steve.
And that's why I've never had a problem. I've had to contact YouTube was contacting me many times, or like probably a dozen times on stuff. I've always taken care of it because I've always been in the right. I've never done anything against TOS. This has never been harassment, never been anything like this sort. And when some people report it, basically, I think what happens is people that report, I think they're tallying that. I think that YouTube is eventually going to crack down on that false reporting.
Here. Hi, Busy. Busy's crack pipe for 2 cents.
Oh,
Hey. Rock bailed on me. Anyone look to party?
Can you do the busy? Can you do the busy voice?
Oh God Almighty.
By the way, I don't have a busy, but I do have a Chesh. She's my shoe on head, I guess I've been told.
I've just been taking it as a compliment, but
yeah,
I'm not
I
sure
do too.
if it is or not.
Good.
Okay.
Sarah's just like, what the hell are
How
you
is
talking
it? How is it?
Yes, so am I. Like,
What the fuck? Where did that
how
come
does
from?
who has shoe on head? Shoe on head's her own bitch.
I would say shoe and head has a Greg, but because she's getting more popular than he is, she's got better
She's
content.
way more popular than he is.
Way more
yeah.
popular
Oh, yeah,
than the
I happen to like
helmet
shoe.
wearing dude.
Shoe and head's my guilty pleasure. I got to tell you, I like
I
her
love
vids.
her.
She does a
bunny
really
is
good job.
everything.
I like to be entertained when I watch a video. I like to be either informed or entertained, and shoe and head does that. So.
And what I think we should wrap up with is people have been asking me and like in private as well as publicly as well as just on Twitter and in various places, how do we support you guys since you guys are getting false flagged? How do we support you on Twitter? What can we do to assist this? And essentially what it comes down to, in my opinion, is if you see targeted harassment, report it. That is against the terms of service. Targeted harassment is so if you see somebody saying, "Hey, go flag this person," and you go and look and see what that person said, and if they didn't say something that is against the terms of service or they didn't say something that is like that you consider egregious, they're attempting to have that person deplatformed.
Yeah.
So the best way you can support that person is by reporting the people who are targeting them.
And
supporting us on Patreon or supporting us with views, please like and share because it hits the algorithm and we don't hit the algorithm naturally. Like I said, we're already getting false flagged.
Will you and Chess put your block list again in the live chat? And I think I don't want to put it in the video scripts. Put it in the live chat though. But a lot of these people that have been trolling me for a very long time have actively gone to people and said, to them, you should go mass flag Steve's channel. Unfortunately, they've also mass flagged other channels, and those channels were in review. My channel isn't because I don't have the content that is even questionable. The other channels had some questionable content because of what they did on how they streamed, and showing I guess other people's content. And so that channel, like Leslie Bass, was in a review for that because people were flagging. It has nothing to do with content ID. This channel doesn't have any issue with that. A mass flag wouldn't work on this channel because I've done nothing wrong. People have reviewed this channel. They've looked at the videos. Never had one ever have a problem. Not one. The most that will happen is get demonetized, right? But that's done automatically. That's not because people flag it. But most of my videos, half my videos get demonetized anyways. This is how it is on YouTube when we're talking about this kind of stuff. You mention a certain word and boom, you're done. So I don't rely on the ad revenue any longer for that. That's why people are going to Patreon, because you half your content is going to be demonetized when we talk about these subjects.
Your best bet is to go to all, because all of us have individual channels, I think, except maybe Jen. Jen, do you have
not active. I do have, let's see, what is it now? I'm just curious. 92 subscribers. I did make a pledge that if I get to 100 subscribers, I'll start to produce content.
We'll put your link in the video description. I like I said, I'm trying to get Trina up too, because she only has like 78. Her videos are getting watched now, but she only has 78 subscribers, which is kind of odd. We'll have to do it. We'll have to sit down one of these days and have a rum of coke and just do a drive for subs for get them to know some of these channels. Unmasking. Oh, and unveiling the mask of Katie Joyless, one of my mods. She was an ex mod of Katie. Go follow her too, because she's got some wonderful content.
Yeah, I only do art, so if you want to see some art, you can go to my channel.
Good.
Yeah, Jessica's going to be putting out a lot more art. She's got some Patreon stuff too, so please take care of her. And she does commissions, and I think that's going to put her on the map eventually, that people are going to recognize she's got talent and go, hey, you need some thumbs, you need this, you need that, whatever, you need an avatar. She'll take care of you on that. And
don't forget to go and look for Dumb Fuck of the Year. And if you do want to see somebody who is actually transphobic, go and look at Antonio Super Rats.
I'm on the panel now. Thank you very much for that nomination. I don't know the reasons. I was on the bus and I was traveling, so I didn't know why. They probably got reasons, for the panel. I'm kind of curious why they put me on there.
Because you just keep getting fucked over by everybody. That's why.
Ah, yeah. No, that's good enough for a reason. But I'm gonna watch that on Red's Hangout. Is that Hangout still?
That
up?
was what I got it.
Yeah, it's still up.
Ah, good, because I want to watch that. What the reasons were. But yeah, so
I got nominated, and on Friday I will be releasing Katie Joy Polson as my Dumb Fuck of the Year.
And by the way, I got to tell you, if anybody might win, other than Kyle, it's Katie.
It's Katie.
I might even push for Katie over Kyle in some regards. So this is going to be a cutthroat competition this year. Friday we have the nominations for the Dumb Fucks of the Year. So I could say 5 of them for probably pretty certain we're going to be on that.
Am I allowed to nominate myself?
Yeah.
If you've done something dumb
yeah.
fuckery.
That's it. I've nominated myself.
What have you done? You've got to have something. You have to have a reason, though. What's your reason?
I exist.
Existence.
Like, that should be enough.
Well, let's just give you the award this year.
I made the mistake of existing.
I just want to thank my mum. I want to thank Steve for giving me this title.
Demi, can't you get back on Twitter somehow with a different name or something?
I don't want to.
He doesn't want to.
I don't want to.
I'm choosing not to.
Because it's a cesspool.
Yeah,
I don't blame her.
I'm not fucking with that. But I would ask anyone who used to keep up or like me on Twitter to just check out my YouTube channel and just do it there. And my Discord. I've got a video coming up probably in the next few days, literally exposing a statutory rapist and someone who forced an underage person to take drugs, who confided that in me. So I have testimony going on my channel in the next couple of days, and I really would like some support on that.
And I just had a video that ended up going live at 4 a.m. instead of 4 p.m. It was supposed to go live after the show.
Oh, that's
that was the one I watched this morning.
Yeah, it's essentially happy birthday to the ISS, because the ISS has now been around for 21 years and it's old enough to drink.
Have we demonstrated that it actually exists? I didn't watch the debate with him and Reds and Antonio Superest.
Oh, it didn't happen because Antonio pissed off.
Oh, I saw a video because I was supposed to host.
It didn't happen.
I was going to host that because there was some issues with Antonio wanted me to moderate and host it because I have a decent rapport with Antonio, even though I think he's bad shit, obviously. But
how can you?
Did that not happen? Because I had a thing from AT2 come up on my feed.
Yeah, Antonio never got back to anybody.
So what was the thing that I got in my email then?
I don't know. It's your email. You tell me.
All right, let's wrap this up. God is scummer. I'll read this one. 5 pounds. If SS the Thought wants to go after a real transphobe, send him the Antonio Super Rats clip. P.S. Demi, you can't win Dumbfuck of the Year with the likes of Antonio Riley around. That's a fair point.
Anthony Riley.
Anthony Riley, yeah. Anthony Riley. Okay, I don't think Anthony Riley is ever going to win for one reason. He's so dumb that he's too dumb to even win Dumbfuck of the Year. He can't even figure it out. So if he gets runner-up every year, I'm okay with that.
Thank you for pissing on my dreams, godless scummer. Thank you very much.
Well, I mean, you can always try for next year.
Put it down Demi again, man. Everybody just keeps her down.
I'm pretty sure that I'm going to get Antonio Subarats. I'm going to nominate Antonio Subarats next year if I get to, because I'm going to say, well, last year he tried at the very last minute to become Dumbfuck of the Year with the likes of Anthony Riley and Kyle in the running and Katie. What a dumb
next time we get together on this, Steve, next time we get together on this topic, remind me to tell you about the time I wasn't allowed to drive a race car because of gender.
Oh my god.
Well, have you seen the way women drive? Oh.
Well, I'm going to kick your ass.
Yeah, we're going to have to get everybody together again, hopefully on Non Sequitur, to have maybe a more lengthy discussion about some of this stuff.
Absolutely.
Which means I'm going to have to go back and rewatch this video and take notes on all the shit we didn't end up talking about. Fuck. All right.
Yeah, which was most of it, I think. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's just
we barely skipped on shit.
There's so much to talk about in these topics. This is what I'm saying. I don't think we'll ever run out of content. But it's unfortunate that we actually, one, have to talk about it, and two, it is more unfortunate that somebody like SS Thought keeps bringing this stuff up and just promotes. I think the person promotes hate. I really do.
Bringing it up to say whatever they want to say and say what we should be saying, and then trying to shut us down if we're having to have a conversation about it.
SS Thought would shut this conversation down in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah.
In a heartbeat, and I just don't operate that way. I want.
Should we challenge Essence of Thought to come and talk to Demi, Jenn, and Sarah, because I think that would be a dumpster fire. Him just getting destroyed.
Non sequitur? Yeah. Oh, I would be like, absolutely. But this is a Thought would never do that because, he doesn't want to be on the same platform with people that he considers to be. Sarah would be a violent transphobe to him.
No. That's an excuse. It's an excuse.
I know it's an excuse.
Well,
but he knows he'll get trounced.
The excuse that Essence of Thought gave for refusing to talk to me, which I asked, was that I give platform to hate speech.
Yeah. Oh, same here. People have been trying to run this narrative. Steve platforms rapists. Steve platforms Nazis. Steve platforms white supremacists, which is just so ridiculous, right? Because Katie started that just recently. Steve associates with Nazis. Steve associates with the right premise. Those are her words. Completely out of context, obviously, because everybody would know that I denounce white supremacists and Nazis completely.
Well, you can still have them on your show and challenge them. That's the whole fucking point.
Yeah, I mean that's what we do. I don't understand. But see,
the Non Sequitur show was good because you had these people with crazy views.
Katie's Joyce fan, not to change topic too much, but Katie's Joyce fans the new people doesn't know any about that. They don't know Non Sequitur. They don't know who I am. So all they hear is Steve associates with Nazis.
And there's no context.
Even though I only had one person I know on that doesn't even identify as a Nazi. But so it's like, without context, it makes no.
It's really hard to have a discussion and demonstrate that somebody is full of shit if you don't let them come on and tell you what their opinion is. Because how do you demonstrate that they're full of shit without them being able to talk?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Side note, I also have another video that just went live. If you guys want to head over to Red's Redder's channel, you can go check that one out.
Put that in the description and go check it out now because we are going to be gone. So, see you guys at noon my time, so about 45 minutes with Ozzy and Nick Suter.
Yeah, you can watch my video while you guys are waiting.
There you go. Put it in the video. Put it in the.
Come to my channel and support this.
Watch my videos. Yeah. Watch my videos.
Look at all this shilling. Look at all this shilling.
Yeah.
Watch me. I want to be noticed.
Well, I'm actually trying to get justice for a rape victim. I'm not just trying.
Demi wins.
All right, we'll get. You know what?
That's an appeal to emotion.
Yeah,
Demi.
exactly. But it's fair. But you know what? Let her. It's fine.
I win.
Listen, that's not popcorn.
She's a winner. Bye bye.